Hello students, we continue with our chapter number 1, gravitation. In our last class we have seen Kepler's laws. There were 3 laws out of which we have done the first and second. Today we come to the third law of Kepler's. To understand this, we are having a simple diagram. This is the sun at the center and this is r, the distance between the sun and any planet, which I have denoted by p. Now, the mean distance between the sun and the planet is suppose small r. Then, what Kepler's want to say in this third law, the square of the period of revolution, that is denoted by t. By period of revolution, we mean that this planet is coming at the same position taking one round. Okay, that is called period of revolution. Revolution means one round when taken by the planet when it comes to the same position. So the square of the period of revolution around the sun is directly proportional to the cube of the mean distance of the planet from the sun. The mean distance of the planet from the sun was taken as r, and the time taken to complete one round is t, which is called period of revolution. So Kepler's third law just states that the square of the period of revolution of the planet around the sun is directly proportional to the cube of the mean distance of the planet from the sun, that is t square is proportional to r cube, meaning t square divided by r cube will be equal to k, that is constant. This is simply Kepler's third law. Statement is very important, and also the equation that t square upon r cube is equal to constant. Now, based upon this Kepler's third law, you are having one question in exercise. Exercise in the textbook you will find on page number 15, and I have given you the solution. The question number is question number 2, and under that the sub question is 4th. From question number 2, 4th question goes in this way: let the period of revolution of a planet at a distance r from a star be t. So the period of revolution, there in the question it is mentioned it is t, and the distance between the planet and the star is taken as r. We have taken here small r, but in the question they have given the distance is r. We will suppose that this distance is distance 1, that is r, and period 1 we will take as t. So t1 I will take as t, and distance 1 I will take at r. Then second part of the question says that if the distance is 2r, if the distance is 2r, so let us take distance 2 is 2r, then we have to prove that the period of revolution, that is period 2, is, that we will denote by t2, is equal to root of 8t. This is one of the very important proof and very important question from the exercise. I am repeating it shortly. Distance 1 is given r, the period of revolution is given t. This is first case. Now in the second case, if the distance is becoming 2r, then we have to show that the time, that is period of revolution, will come to be root 8 of the initial period, that is t. Let's solve it. This is solved with the help of Kepler's third law. Using Kepler's third law, we know t square upon r cube is equal to k, as we have already seen. So let us apply this to these two cases. So I will write t1 square upon distance 1 cube is equal to, because the ratio is constant, is equal to t2 square upon distance 2's cube. So let us substitute. Distance 1 was taken as r, and distance 2 is given to be 2r. T is given as first period, and period 2 we have supposed to be t2. Substituting this, and then when I take r cube and open this bracket, it is going to be 8 r cube. R cube will get cancelled, and on the RHS we will be left with 1 by 8. If I take square root on both the sides, this square will disappear and this will become root of 8. So t2 will be equal to root of 8 into t. Hence proved. Okay, if you have any doubt in this question, let me know. Then second concept that we will cover today is Newton's universal law of gravitation. In 9th standard we had 3 laws of motion for Newton. In this chapter we have only one, but that is the most important question from the chapter. Newton's universal law of gravitation means it is not applicable only on the earth, but between any two objects in the universe. Newton's universal law of gravitation we will understand by taking into account two small objects having masses m1 and m2. They may be different or they may be same. Means the masses m1 and m2 may be same or they may be different. Let they apply force of F on each other, and let the distance between their center is denoted by small d. Now, what Newton wants to say in this universal law, every object attracts every other object in the universe with a definite force. Okay, this is one object, this is another object in the whole universe, and they are applying force on each other. So every object in the universe attracts every other object with a definite force, and the statement continues actually, this force is directly proportional to the product of the masses, and it is inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them. Students, you need to remember the statement as given in the textbook. Okay, after this you have to continue. This force is directly proportional to the product of the masses, and it is inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them. So we are getting F is proportional to m1 m2 upon d square, where d is the distance between the two masses. Now this proportionality constant we are replacing by equal to some constant. Because it is gravitational constant, we instead of writing k, we are writing here g, and you have to immediately mention that where g is equal to universal gravitational constant. This is the very important equation which is called mathematical expression for Newton's universal law of gravitation. F is equal to g m1 m2 upon d square. Very important formula. We will be having sums based upon this in exercise. Now more about this capital G, which is called universal constant of gravitation. G, from this equation 1 I will get G is equal to F d square. D square I am taking here, and m1 and m2 will come down. So this equation on rearrangement will change to this. Now if suppose I take distance between the two bodies d as 1 meter, if d I take 1 meter, and let m1 and m2 both are equal and equal to 1 kg, means this is called unit masses, then what I am left with, we will be left with G is equal to F. So that I get the definition of G from this. How I can define G? G can be defined as the force. G became equal to force, no? So G is gravitational force which is acting between two unit masses. Unit masses means m1 and m2 is equal to 1 kg. They are kept at a distance of unit from each other, means that d distance is 1 meter. So that was the definition of capital G. It is the force of attraction between two unit masses kept at a unit distance away from each other. You need to remember the definition for capital G, which is called universal gravitational constant. This is the definition, and the SI unit of G is simply when I put the values of these terms. Force unit is Newton, distance meter, so it is meter square, m1 into m2, kg into kg will become kg square. So simply when I remember this formula, I can know what is G. If I remember this formula, I will know what is the SI unit of G, and the value of the G is constant, that is 6.673 into 10 raised to minus 11 Newton meter square per kg square. That's all for today. Bye bye. I will be giving you homework in our WhatsApp group.